Hey, this is Heath Mullican with the Techology Show. We're honored to have Dr. Mark Gorveatte with us this morning, the president of Kingswood University. Dr. Gorveatte, we interviewed you about 18 months ago at the gathering in Orlando, and you had just made the transition to Canada. Talk about the transition to Kingswood University and what that name means to your school.
Well, it's been a great journey, and it's great to be back on the Techology Show, let me say. Appreciate what you guys are doing, and excited about the streaming you're doing today. For us, the journey to a name change really was driven by our mission. We're the only Wesleyan Bible college in North America. We'd have one of the highest percentages of our graduates going to Muslim mission fields. And the Global Partners Missions Agency talked to us about the challenge our graduates were facing as they came to customs immigration and put their Bible college diploma on the table. It didn't matter what you told them that you're there to do, you're already on the watch list. We had one of our students emergency evacuated out of a crisis situation in a Muslim country. Finally, we received a formal request from Global Partners, would you prayerfully consider changing your name? And our chairman of the board, who also happens to be the general director of Global Partners, said, look, if even one person doesn't get to hear the gospel, because we were reluctant to change our name, we will give an account to God. And the vote was unanimous. It wasn't a problem after that, because that's such a core value for us, reaching people for Jesus. Well, then the challenge is, what name do you pick? Because in a flat world with the internet, there were already 8 other Bethanies floating around out there. In fact, the night I was inaugurated, there was another Bethany college in Canada who inaugurated their president the same night, same exact time. So we wanted to try to clarify that, and what could we find that was a touchstone to some Wesleyan heritage, maybe that spoke to the values that we are, what are priorities for us. And so we found this name Kingswood bubbled up. Some of you will know that Kingswood was the place where John Wesley first preached the gospel to coal miners out of town, out of doors. And that first day he preached, there were about 2,000 people who gathered. And as he preached the gospel, he was convinced that you don't just win converts, you make disciples. So by Thursday night, he'd already established the first small group for women, then a small group for men. And by the summertime, he'd laid the cornerstone for what became Kingswood School, which still exists today. But his commitment was to train next generation leaders for ministry. So those values of doing radical evangelism, whatever it takes, out of the box, doing devoted discipleship, getting people into the Word, and then training the next generation of leaders seems so core. There are a couple of other benefits to it. We're actually in Kings County, New Brunswick, Canada, so that kind of rolled for us. And one of the things you do in marketing studies, you test the name to see what free association comes up. And so you put the name on a piece of paper, you ask people what does it make you think of, and a couple of different students indicated it made them think of the cross, which for us spoke to the servant leadership motif that is so important to what we're trying to instill in our students. So that's the name change. We were approved officially by the province. In Canada, a university is a degree-granting institution. Doesn't speak about multidisciplinary or graduate programs. The fact that you can grant a degree is the status. We'd already been designated by the province since 1983 as a degree-granting university. So we thought, when we make the change, let's do that. The other Kingswood colleges in the world are high schools. In the British system, a college is a prep school. Right. So we're Kingswood University, and you know this, guys, kingswood.edu. On the internet, .edu is like corner real estate in the education market, and it was available. Wow. So we said, okay, slam dunk, let's go.
That's great. Yeah. You talked about training next generation leaders, and that's really what Pastor Kevin Myers hit on yesterday in his keynote address. He talked about residency internships, and I know that Bethany, or excuse me, sorry, right. Kingswood. Kingswood. Bethany, we will. That's right. Kingswood has a long history of sending students out. We were talking yesterday in the hallways about students who've done the 6-month program. Talk about that and what Bethany is doing to train that next generation of leaders.
Several years ago, under Dr. David Metters, the college adopted a philosophy of ministry that really said practice matters. And so for every one of our graduates, they have to do a full semester. It's not a summer, let's go do vacation Bible school and hang out with a pastor. It's do a full semester of ministry in an assignment that is parallel to what your degree is. So if you're going to be church planting, you go someplace where a church is being planted by someone who's experienced. If you're going to do youth ministry, the person has to have at least 5 years experience and 2 years in their present location, and then you serve with them in the trenches. That's already part of our undergraduate process, and we're thrilled about that. We think that's a jump start, but Pastor Kevin really nailed the idea of delayed adolescence. It's a reality that we're facing, and so we realize a lot of our students, when they graduate from a 4-year program, are still not ready to dive in. So we've already started a relationship with Kings Valley Wesleyan Church, right down the road about 45 miles, a church of 700. Their pastor is a great friend of our school, one of our graduates, and he's working with Dr. David Smith, our academic dean, to put together what's called the Master of Arts in Pastoral Theology. And students will be on campus for a day or two a week for studies. They'll be able to live in the dorm, continue that relationship, but they will then be involved in ministry for at least a minimum of 20 hours a week. That program will be an additional year after their BA degree. So we don't get the full 2 years, but we've got another step for students who say, I'm just not ready, I want more practical experience, I want to be in this residency environment. And we're hoping there'll be some Kingswood students who make their way down to 12 Stone as well. So that'll be fun.
Well, Dr. Gorveatte, thank you so much for all that you're doing at Kingswood and for the denomination. And we want to thank you for being a sponsor of the Techology Show here at General Conference, and just keep up the great work.
Can I tell you one more thing?
Yes, sir.
We talked about practical ministry. Folks said, how do you keep score? How do you evaluate progress? Right. This year, our students prayed one-on-one with 135 people, led them to Jesus Christ. Wow. Student body of 206, 135 decisions for Christ. And I say, just don't tell our kids that's not normal. Yeah. We want them to think that's the expectation of the Wesleyan Church, that we're about seeing lives transformed by the power of the gospel. Wow.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. That should be the norm. That's a novel idea, that students studying for ministry would do ministry and lead people to Jesus. So it's happening at Kingswood. Check them out, kingswood.edu.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
This 2012 General Conference coverage is brought to you by Kingswood University. Prepare for full-time Christian service by earning a degree in ministry. Feel the heartbeat of Kingswood to become more like Christ. Embrace academic excellence and learn from highly trained, experienced practitioners. Become a passionate, missional leader by participating in real-life ministry. Kingswood University offers you the opportunity to create your own degree focus for God's unique call on your life. Kingswood University equips Christ-like servant leaders for global impact. For more information, please visit www.kingswood.edu.